Perfect.
All right, perfect. So F2Fs. So we're part of a national network. Our role is to help families get health information for challenges and services related to children with special health care needs in our state. So we do that by providing technical assistance, resource coordination, connecting parents to mentors, building skills and leadership opportunities, and a lot of trainings. Our team is family members who themselves have firsthand lived experience of being a parent or caregiver of a child with special health care needs. So they all can tell you from not only their work experience, but also their lived experiences. So let's see if I can get this to go. Okay, the CED is a part of West Virginia University and the WVU Health Science Center. So for those of you that aren't familiar with the CED, our main office is in Morgantown, and then we have a satellite office in Charleston, West Virginia, and then we have staff that are stationed all over the state in different DHHR offices to be better, closer to the clients that they serve in that area. There's a lot of ways that you can connect with the CED. We are on Facebook, we have a website, we have Instagram, YouTube. You can sign up to receive emails to get information about things like this training, resources, other things that are going on around the state. We also have a specific email list that's just for families so that you only get the information that's relevant to you if that's what you would be looking for. Let's see something in the waiting room. Okay. So today we have a packed agenda. We're going to talk about all of the West Virginia waivers and some additional services that would be specifically relevant and related that we didn't want to leave out. And so we are going to start today talking about which waiver is right for you, and then hopefully by the end of the day, you'll be able to figure out, okay, now I know more about the waivers and where to go for more information. So this is a great tool. I just wanted you guys to know that the West Virginia waiver website has all of this information that we're going to be sharing today as a great resource to reference back to. And this part in particular is really helpful. I loved this part because you can go and you can click on each section and figure out which one is right for you. So I really encourage you guys to spend some time checking out the West Virginia waiver website because it is really helpful. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Rachel Goff. Rachel is the program manager for the CSED waiver. And Rachel, if you want, I can go ahead and get started with the video.
Yeah, this is Jen. I'm going to be presenting on Rachel's behalf.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry, Jen.
No worries.
Let's see.
Yeah, we can start with the video.
Okay, let's pull this over and see that.
With Serious Emotional Disorders Waiver Program is for West Virginia youth and young adults between ages 3 and 21 years old with serious mental, behavioral, or emotional needs. The waiver allows West Virginia Medicaid members to remain at or return home and use services in the community instead of residing at a care facility or institution. Waiver participants receive a personalized plan of care to improve their condition, like training to perform daily living activities, help to find and succeed in competitive employment, and therapy or treatment for severe problems. Services could even provide short-term relief for primary caregivers. Use this site to find out if you're eligible for the waiver, get help with questions, and download an application. The application and approval process can take up to 45 days, so it's important to start now. Care at home. It could be the most important choice you make.
Okay. All right, do you want to go ahead and take it over?
Sure, absolutely. My name is Jennifer Eva. I'm the senior project coordinator here at Aetna for the CSED waiver program. And prior to coming on board here at Aetna, I did work at the state and did help them to put together the waiver. So this waiver was approved in March of 2020, and I can't believe we're going to be going up on year 4 here shortly. Just to kind of give you guys some numbers, currently we have 1,423 kids that are on the program. Overall, since 2020, we have served 2,650 individuals. We do have children who are in all 55 counties. It is a specialized managed care waiver, 1915C, for kids who are eligible for the program. One of the questions that we get quite often is, are the kids in foster care? Like, do they have to just be in foster care? And the answer to that is no. We have a full variety of children who are on the program. Some live with mom and dad. We've got kids that are in foster care. We've got kids that are in independent living. We also have children who are living with post-adoptive and children who are in foster care as well. So Aetna Better Health of West Virginia is the managed care organization that works with the Bureau for Medical Services to support them with certain portions of this program. So when folks are approved for the program, they do have to choose Aetna Better Health of West Virginia as the MCO, the children do, to provide services. One of the biggest things that we're trying to work kind of 2 paths at the same time. Number one, for kids who are in psychiatric residential treatment facilities or residential treatment facilities, we are trying to bring them home with structured and intensive services, right? So often those types of facilities are very structured, and when the kids are discharged back into community placement, you will often see that there's a honeymoon period where they do really well, and then at some point they will kind of start going backwards to old behaviors and old patterns. So the concept is to bring highly structured and intensive services into the home, which focused on the national wraparound model, where we're wrapping services around the child and family. The other thing that we want to do is for kids who are discharged back into the community, we want them to have those intensive supports when they come back home. And in the event that we can prevent a placement, we absolutely want to do that as well. Next slide. The eligibility criteria is pretty straightforward with this waiver. We do serve children age 3 up to 20 or up to their 21st birthday. We have a stellar birth to 3 program here in West Virginia, and the thought process was that we could get children that are coming off of birth to 3 and then start at the age 3 range. We do have about 65 kids that are within the age 3 to 5 range right now, which I think is great, because what we're doing is we're looking at preventative services and trying to get ahead of it, so to speak. The state did consider extending it out past the 21st birthday, but then the federal government, or CMS, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid, does consider that an adult, so we would have to have done an adult waiver as well. They have to have resided in a psychiatric residential treatment facility within the last 6 months, or be in imminent risk, which means 1 month or less of being placed. Okay. They have to also meet medical eligibility criteria. What this really means is they have to have a diagnosable mental, behavioral, or emotional disorder. Oftentimes we get the question of what specific diagnoses would render a child eligible for CSED. And we stay away from calling out diagnoses for a couple of reasons. Number one, the DSM and the ICD, which are the diagnostic criteria that identify the psychiatric and psychological diagnoses, often change. And since this is a federally funded program, if those were to change, we would have to open the waiver back up, and we don't want to do that. The other thing is we would have had to have named the specific diagnoses, and we didn't want to inadvertently miss a diagnosis where a child could be eligible for the program. So we rely heavily on the assessments, which is the next bullet. So the CAFIS or PECFIS will be completed. And what we're looking at here is a youth total score of 90 or above. So a CAFIS or PECFIS will be completed at evaluation if one has not been done within the last 90 days. If there's one that is 90 days or less, then we won't need to redo it. The other thing we look at is the BASC. They have to have T-scores of greater than 60 and 2 or more of the clinical scales. So really, to break it down, what we're looking at is children who have a hard time functioning at home, at school, and or in their communities. Like I said previously, we do see a wide range of children that are on the program. We do see kids that have challenges in all three of those environments. We may have kids that do extremely well in school, but in home or at their communities, they have challenges, or vice versa. They also have to be a current West Virginia resident. If the child is out of state receiving treatment, they're still a West Virginia resident, so they can apply for the program. The next bullet is really the biggest thing. They have to receive home and community-based services instead of residential care. So with the challenges that these kind of kids face, oftentimes when they get to us, the primary caregiver is extremely burnt out. And with that, sometimes we do have folks that are really hesitant to receive services in their homes and communities. And they really want to focus on the PRTF admission. It's not really easy to find an admission into a psychiatric residential treatment facility very quickly. So what we try to do is get CSED services in the home and work with the families while they're waiting to find a bed for PRTF. And sometimes that works very well, and we are able to stop the PRTF admission. And again, they have to choose to enroll with Medicaid and choose Aetna as their current MCO. So each child that is on the program will receive an Aetna care manager who will contact them on a weekly basis and kind of see how things are going. And they're going to do some assessments, and they're going to help link them with their medication as well, and additional things. And they are part of the team under CSED waiver. So it is an additional layer of support that the families can get. Next slide. All right, so let's talk about the services. So the RAP facilitator is like a case manager, but they're extremely intensive. They will go out into the home and visit the family on a weekly basis, at least when the level of intensity is necessary. Once the child kind of stabilizes and the family wants to kind of back off from the level of intensity of the weekly visits, then they can do that. But that RAP facilitator is kind of the glue that holds everything together. So they're working with the therapist, they're working with the family, they're working with the care manager at Aetna. And what they're going to do is they're going to go out on a weekly basis to visit the family to kind of see how things are going, to see what your needs are. They are also going to initiate services within 72 hours of being assigned the case. And initiation of services means that they're going to talk about the program, they're going to schedule assessments to be completed, they're going to talk about what services are available, kind of what the needs are of the family, and begin thinking about what services they want. A plan of care, an initial plan of care, needs to be done within 7 days. And that's going to include the entire team. That initial plan is basically you guys identifying or beginning the master plan of care, which is completed within 30 days. So within 30 days, a master or comprehensive plan of care is going to be completed. And that comprehensive plan of care includes the goals that you guys are working on, and includes the therapy plan, and it includes a crisis plan. If the child is age 15 or above, it's going to include a plan to transition into adulthood. And you're also going to be talking about discharge. Really, the goal of the program is to look at what a successful discharge would be for the child, and then to work backwards from there. It is considered a short-term waiver, so the average length of stay on this program we would like to be about 6 to 9 months. That being said, we do have kids who have been on the program for over a year. If you continue to remain eligible for the program, then you will continue to be served under the program. But it is a high intensity short term waiver, unlike the intellectual and developmental disabilities waiver, which is more of a lifelong program. We do have family therapy. The family therapy can be conducted either in the home or at the offices where the therapist is. Don't let the name fool you. They can do individual therapy as well. So, with family therapy, each child is allotted up to 2 hours a day, 7 days a week if needed. We've yet to see a child require 2 hours a day, 7 days a week. The thought process there is that the first hour could be with the child one on one, and then the second hour could be with the family. The in home family support worker works directly under the therapist, and they are working with the child and family to kind of do the therapy plan, to work through the therapy plan. That in home family support worker comes out to the home and works with the family and the child. Again, they can have up to 2 hours a day, 7 days a week if needed, one on one with the child, and then the second hour can be with the family as well. Typically, what we see, and I love the way that providers have structured this, because of the level of intensity that this program provides, there are some families that are like, whoa, 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 this is too intense. I don't know everybody. I'm not really used to people being in my home. So what they can do is they can kind of back off a little bit until the family is gets to know them and is ready for the level of intensity provided by the program. Typically, the therapist will go out 2 to 3 times a week, and then the in home family support person will go out 2 to 3 times a week as well. So, at the end of the day, that child is getting 5 days of intensive services. Peer parent support is someone who has lived experience with raising a child with a serious emotional disorder. In terms of that, it can be a great support to the primary caregiver. It's someone who has lived through what they're going through, and it's someone who they can kind of vent to and who can kind of point them in the right direction in terms of, I'm having issues over here, applying for this program. It's kind of someone who's been there, done that.
Zach must be somebody else.
Okay, I hear.
Oh,
Make sure you guys
gosh.
are muted, please. Mobile response at beginning January of 2024, mobile response will be provided via the Medicaid state plan. So it won't be a CSED service available, but it will be available via the Medicaid state plan. But what this support offers is it's a 24/7 service, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They call a phone number if there's an issue, and someone will respond within an hour. And then within 72 hours, a prevention plan will be put into place, and then services will be put into place for a short duration following the incident. So these are kids that are having a crisis type of moment, and where they are unable to regulate from the emotional responses that may have triggered the event. Then mobile response is available. Mobile response is also available through mobile crisis response through the Bureau of Behavioral Health. So if you live in a county where mobile response is not available within CSED, then we do utilize that mobile crisis response as well. But again, as of
And got
January
a DVP
2024,
on my client.
those are going to that is going to be moved to the Medicaid state plan. We do have in and out of home respite. It is not available for kids in foster care under CSED because children in foster care do have the ability to access respite under the foster care model under 4E funding. But for kids who are living at home with mom and dad, adoptive kids, kinship care, we can go into the home and give the primary caregiver a break. So basically, we would go into the home and mom and dad would go out and go Christmas shopping or go do something while the child is being watched. Out of home respite is exactly what it sounds like. The individual providing the service would pick the child up and take them out in the community and give mom and dad or the primary caregiver a break. Assistive equipment or specialized therapy, these are really great services that can kind of go together. So with specialized therapy, I want you to think about non-traditional therapies that offer a therapeutic benefit. This would be like play therapy, music therapy, art therapy, dance therapy, equine therapy. With assistive equipment, that kind of goes with that. So with assistive equipment, we can provide like musical instruments if kids are going through music therapy. We've bought art supplies for kids who are going through art therapy. There are some things that we are limited because it is a federal program. Like we cannot pay for rent, we can't buy you a vehicle, but we can purchase some equipment to assist the child. One of the things that I've seen that I really love is the My Gear tablet. A lot of our kids have issues with technology. And what the My Gear tablet does is it measures heart rate and level of excitability. So as the child's playing their game, once they reach a certain level of excitability, the game will stop, and then it will run the kid through some therapeutic exercises. And then once they go back to baseline, then they can continue to play the game again. I think that's pretty awesome. Non-medical transportation is for the non-professional services. So folks that are actually taking the child out into the community, the respite worker, the independent living skills building worker, job development, supportive employment, they can bill respite to take that individual out into the community. It is not for professional services because that was already built into the reimbursement rate for those services. Independent living skills building offers the ability for us to take the kids out into the community, age 15 and above, and help them to be successful while they may have triggers out in the community. And let me give you a specific example of where this works. We had an individual on the program, he's still on the program. He was age 15 and he had bounced from psychiatric residential treatment facility, one to another for about 8 years. So at the end of the day, this child had spent more time in one of those types of facilities than he did back out in the community. So unfortunately, we do have those types of kids that are on the program, and those require high intensive services and services wrapped around them. But with this kid in particular, he was out with his independent living skills building worker. They were out. It was a good day. He was doing well. They stopped for lunch, went to McDonald's. And when they got into the drive-through, he was very triggered by the drive-through and he completely shut down. He wouldn't speak to the worker and he was showing visible signs of being upset, and that was escalating quickly. The worker was able to order for both of them, and he pulled over and he was talking to the child to kind of see what was happening. And the child said to him, he said, "I don't know how to order from a drive-through and I'm embarrassed." So this is something that, we kind of take for granted that we don't even think about. And this is a perfect example of where that type of service would be beneficial in helping these kids. Job development and supportive employment, this is where we want the kids to start looking at their future. So we do have the ability to get them ready for jobs or careers with job development. You can get employment assessments done to find out what they like. You can do some volunteer work. We have a lot of kids that love animals on our program, and animals help them to de-escalate therapeutically. So we do have some kids that are working at volunteering at local farms because they love to be around the animals. How to interview appropriately, mock interviews, those types of things. And then with supportive employment, we can actually have somebody go to the workplace with the individual. Community transition is a one-time payment up to $3,000. And this is for individuals that are coming directly out of psychiatric residential treatment facilities, age 18 or above, who are going directly into independent living. These individuals do not have foster homes to go to. They do not have families to go back to, but they're going directly from an institutional type setting into homes. So this is up to $3,000 to assist them with getting started in that type of living activity. Now, again, we are limited on what we can pay with that. We can't pay for rent. We can't pay vehicles, but we can furnish the apartment. We can get linens. We can get dishes. We can do utility setups, those types of things. Next slide. So those are the wide range of services that we offer children on the program. If you would like to apply for the program, the process begins by calling the crisis and referral line. And a family member can contact that line as well to assist with any type of crisis situation that happens. The CSED application form will be sent to Acentra, who is formerly known as KeyPro. And if you have not heard back from Acentra within 5 business days of submitting your application, it has their contact information as well. So enrollment into the program does depend on availability of the funded space. As of right now, we have the ability to serve up to 2,500 children, and we are at 1,400. So we do have space that is available. Now, one of the things that I would like to say is, before I hand it over, is we do have provider capacity challenges sometimes. So we started directly when the pandemic started. Our first children became available, were approved for the program when the pandemic started. And that changed a lot of our lives. Like, we had to go from in-person to telehealth, and starting up a statewide program during the pandemic was a bit of a struggle because nobody could kind of foresee that coming. So a lot of the agencies that were participating at the time had to kind of back off because they lost staff and they wanted to participate and focus on their current lines of business. But one of the things that we're doing is we are currently recruiting providers to become a part of the CSED provider network. And we are constantly looking for providers. So if you are a provider agency and you are interested, please reach out to myself or Rachel Goff and let us know if you're interested. I would love to have a discussion with you. Next slide. And we have the downloadable fact sheet that's available online if you would like to pursue that. Next slide. The contacts, Rachel Goff is our program manager at the Bureau for Medical Services. That's her contact information. This also has my contact information as well, and Caroline Duckworth at Acentra Health. She heads up the CSED waiver program there at Acentra.
Thank you
And
so
I believe
much,
that's
Jen.
all. Yeah.
Yeah,
All
thank
right.
you
Thank
so
you so
much.
much. I do appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, and thank you to everyone in the chat who has been helping alongside your presentation. There's been a lot of great questions and a lot of really good answers. So thank you so much to your team and partners as well.
Much appreciated. We appreciate the invite. Thank you.
Okay, next up we have Luann Summers, who is going to share information with us about the West Virginia Aged and Disabled Waiver. And if I could find on my screen where I have that video saved, I can go ahead and pull that over. So let's see.
Aged and Disabled Waiver Program is for West Virginia Medicaid members with disabilities who are 18 years and older and require assistance. This waiver allows a person to remain at or return home instead of residing in a care facility. Waiver participants receive help with bathing, dressing, grooming, and eating, non-medical transportation, and a personal emergency response system that allows the member to call for help. Use this site to see if you're eligible for the waiver, get help with questions, and download an application. The application and approval process can take up to 60 days, so it's important to start now. Care at home. It could be the most important choice you make. The age.
Okay. So I also just wanted to note for you guys that all of these videos are on that website, and they're really easy, short things that you could send to families just as a quick overview of like, here's something that I want you to take a look at, check it out. They can get the information about these videos and all of the flyers. So just a little plug there again. Luann, Susan, are you guys ready to take over?
Yep, I'm ready.
Okay.
I'm Luann Summers, and I'm the Age and Disabled Waiver Program Manager. I work for the Bureau of Medical Services. And Susan Silverman, she is the Director of Medicaid Operations, and she works for the Bureau of Senior Services. I just want to briefly explain a little bit the relationship about my program and who I subcontract with, because sometimes it can be an area of confusion for the applicants. BMS, the Bureau of Medical Services, the agency I work for, we're the single state agency, and we're responsible for administering the program. We subcontract with the Bureau of Senior Services to be the operation agency. And so they're responsible for the day-to-day operations. They do the certifications of the agencies. They train the agencies, and they do the annual monitoring of the agencies for the program. And then we also subcontract with Centra, aka Keypro, and they're the utilization management contractor. And they do all the initial and annual medical evaluation. You muted me. So I don't know where I left off. Okay, so Centra is the utilization management contractor, and they do the initial and annual medical eligibility assessments and the authorizations. So a lot of times people will call and say, I'm on this KeyPro program, or I'm on this BOSS program, and because it gets a little confusing, because sometimes they're told, well, no, you got to call them, so they assume that's who's over the program. So anybody who's assisting an individual to apply, I just think that's good information to know. So the ADW program, it's defined as a long-term care alternative, and it provides services that allows an individual to remain or return home rather than be in a nursing home facility. It provides home and community-based services to West Virginia residents who are eligible for the program. You must qualify for a nursing home level of care, and you must need personal care assistance with the program. It's not just a program for housekeeping and for transportation, because we do get a lot of calls. Yeah, I don't need anybody to help me to bathe, but I do need somebody to take me around town, and I do need somebody to clean my house. But those are ancillary services. They're not the main service. Next slide, please. Okay, to be eligible for the program, you must be 18 years of age or older. You have to be a permanent resident of West Virginia, and you can be discharged or transferred from a nursing home in any county or state, just as long as you have residence in West Virginia. You have to meet the Medicaid financial eligibility criteria. And this information, the applicant's gross monthly income may not exceed 300% of the current maximum SSI payment for the month. Every January, this amount gets reassessed. So currently, right now, an individual cannot make more than $2,742 a month. And they also cannot have, as a single individual, over $2,000 in assets, and as a married couple, $3,000 in assets. So a lot of times, if you give that individual that information up front, they will know, well, I may not qualify for this because of my income. So it's good for them to know that up front rather than to go through the whole process. They must also be medically eligible for a nursing home level of care, as I said. And what is used is Centra goes out and they do what's called a pre-admission screening. And this is the same screening that they use to determine a nursing home level of care. So out of the 14 areas that they look at, and these are things like the individual's ability to get around the house, to bathe themselves, to dress themselves, to fix meals. They look at their diagnoses that they currently have. They have to have 5 deficits out of the 14 areas that they look at. Usually on the program, individuals who apply, we don't have a lot of issues with them not being medically eligible. It seems like sometimes the financial is more of an issue than the medical eligibility, but we will have a few that are not medically eligible. And then they also must choose to participate in the ADW program as an alternative to the nursing home. And also, enrollment is dependent on the number of available funded slots. We're given CMS, the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare, they give us so many slots each fiscal year, and we have to remain within that allotted number of slots. Luckily for the age and disabled waiver, we haven't had to have a wait list, and we have been able to add additional slots. So that really hasn't been a problem. When I first came on board, we did have a wait list, but we haven't had a wait list for many years right now. Next slide. So the services that we provide, and you'll see on here, it says the following services via the traditional model. The age and disabled waiver provides a service delivery in 2 different means. You can do what's called the traditional service delivery model, and that's where an individual will select an agency that provides these services and has been certified by the Bureau of Senior Services to come in and provide the services. They'll send a worker in. Or you can do what's called the personal options model, where the member actually becomes the employer and they can hire an individual of their choice, as long as that individual is not a spouse or a legal guardian to them. The age and disabled waiver does not allow for spouses to be paid caregivers. So the services that both of the programs provide is the personal attendant, and that's the individual that comes in and assists the person in their activities of daily living. Case management, which we all know what that consists of. We have what's called skilled nursing, and it's a little misleading by the title because it's not actually nursing care. They do an annual assessment, and then they do nursing services, which is mainly observation, monitoring of the paperwork, and they will do some training for the personal attendant. We have non-medical transportation, and that's one of the ancillary, it helps with the ancillary services of being able to run essential errands and community outings, but there are some limits on it, but the transportation can be provided and reimbursed. We recently added the personal emergency response system. Individuals can request that service and they get one of those, the little button, help me, I've fallen. And so we've seen growth in that. A lot of individuals are partaking in that service. A new service we added is environmental accessibility adaptations for the home and vehicle, and that's where a certain dollar amount can be granted to an individual to maybe if they need to put grab bars up, or if they need to have some type of modification in the vehicle that transports them or that they drive. There is some money available in order for them to get those adaptations. And then a real new one that we probably won't actually get started till January is adult medical daycare. We have a provider in the Huntington area that's up and running and ready to start to provide that service. It was a service that we offered many, many years ago, and then we stopped. So it's brand new to me, and it's new because, we haven't had it for a long time. So we're pretty excited about that. Next slide, please. And the application process, it starts with a form that's called a medical necessity evaluation request. It's a 1-page form. The individual fills out demographics on the top, and then they have to have their physician fill out the bottom part. They provide diagnoses, and they answer some questions about that individual's health, and then that form gets faxed to Essentra. I should have changed Keypro on there, but Essentra, and then once they get that, they will send a letter out to the applicant, and they will give that applicant the financial application. Because the financial eligibility is done through the local DHHR. So when the individual fills out that financial application, then they have to send that to the local DHHR, and then they determine the financial eligibility. If an individual has some questions about filling out the application, we encourage them to call the West Virginia Aging and Disability Resource Center. We're trying to get to a one-stop type place where people can go to get assistance with filling out the applications. Of course, if they called the Bureau of Medical Services, if they called me or they called boss, we definitely wouldn't say, oh, we can't help you, you need to call this number. We would help them. So individuals have to apply to determine their financial and medical eligibility before they would actually get a slot. And then once that is established, then if a slot is available, then they would be able to begin receiving their services. Next slide, please. We also have a downloadable fact sheet online too. Some of the newer services aren't included in this fact sheet, so seeing this fact sheet reminded me we probably need to get these updated. As we add services and change things, sometimes we need to go back on here and update these. But it is there, and for the most part, it has most of the basic information on it. And then this is the contacts. People can contact me. They can contact the Bureau of Senior Services. And I didn't list Essentra here. They can be contacted, but like I said, they're the agency that's mainly doing the medical eligibility and the authorizations. Sometimes people do have questions about their past assessment and things like that. So Keypro could be contacted. But that's all I have today, and I appreciate the opportunity too to be able to present and share information about the program. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Luann. I think that was really helpful to a lot of people. I saw some good questions come into the chat, so if you wouldn't mind to just take a look through those and see if there's any that haven't been answered that could be addressed today, that would be great. Okay. Next, we have Ashley and Stacy, and I am going to do the same thing with their video.
The Intellectual Developmental Disabilities Waiver Program is for West Virginia Medicaid members who are 3 years old and older and have been diagnosed with an intellectual or developmental disability. The waiver allows a person to remain at or return to their home and community instead of residing in a care facility. Waiver participants can receive training in independent skills, changes to homes and vehicles that make life easier for members, day program or job coaching employment services for those over 18 years old, and even respite services for caregivers. Use this site to find out if you're eligible for the waiver, get help with questions, and download an application. The application and approval process can take up to 100 days or more, so it's important to start now. Care at home. It could be the most important choice you make.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Stacy Brose. I'm the IDD Waiver Program Manager with the Bureau for Medical Services. That's the state agency that runs the waiver programs. Ashley Quinn, she is with Essentra Health, formerly known as Keypro. So when we say Keypro and Essentra Health, those are the same things in case anyone is getting confused. So those two names might be used interchangeably, but they mean the same thing. Keypro, Essentra, they're the same. She is the lead provider educator. She is my right hand. I don't know what I would do without her. To be quite honest, and she's going to be doing most of the speaking for our presentation, and I will try to monitor the chat, and I'll probably interject here and there. And then whenever I talk briefly about a program that is closely related. It's not a waiver program, but closely related to the IDD waiver program called CDCSP. I'll talk about that and answer any questions you guys may have. So I'll turn it over to Ashley now.
Hi guys, thanks for joining us today. Like Stacy mentioned, I'm the lead provider educator with Essentra Health, formerly known as KEPRO. So our IDD waiver program is available for folks who are ages 3 and up who have a qualified diagnosis. This is a diagnosis that will need to be given out before the age of 22. Now we do have some affiliated conditions that you could have, such as autism, such as cerebral palsy. And as long as you have the deficiencies in the skill areas, then that also would make you eligible for our program. The whole purpose of IDD is to receive services in the member's home and local community. It's to provide support, training, instruction. We also have respite services like some of the other programs. We are also one of the only states in the entire country that allow for parent providers to receive compensation for services. So that's one of the big draws to IDD waiver here in West Virginia. Not a lot of states do that. I think us and maybe Mississippi.
Maybe Colorado.
And yeah, it's not very many.
We also have over 6,000 people on our program, by the way.
Yes. Yeah. Right now we have a little over 6,000 slots. Ours is similar to ADW. We have a certain amount of slots that are allocated per our application to the federal government. We do have rollover slots annually, and those numbers vary. If we have folks who unfortunately pass away, who choose to no longer receive services, who move out of state, who become ineligible for one reason or another. Those are typically the types of scenarios that come into place whenever we have rollover slots. Now, one thing we are able to do, and it's done every now and again, is included in our application. We will sometimes request for additional slots. The most recent, and some of you may be aware, in 2020, we released our wait list. It was approximately 1,000 individuals to the program, and that was much needed for folks because unfortunately the wait list for IDD waiver is quite long. We now have approximately 500 individuals on the list. And like I said, it depends just because of the amount of rollover slots. They're not the same every year. So if you'd like, you can go ahead and switch to the next slides. Hello, this is Juniper. She is grumpy. Like I mentioned earlier, you'll need to meet eligibility criteria, medical as well as financial. Like I said, you have to have a qualifying IDD diagnosis. It has to have been rendered before age 22. Similarly to the ADW program, there are financial eligibility requirements, including, as it says here, your monthly income can't exceed 300% of the SSI payments. We also have, I don't know what to call it. It's not affiliated with IDD waiver, but one of the great things with IDD waiver and financial eligibility now is there's a program available called West Virginia Able. And so if you are someone who perhaps maybe is butting up against that financial eligibility limit, that program is there. So that way members can deposit money. It does not, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's there to kind of safeguard your financial eligibility for the program. So I very much always encourage everybody to look into that. As it says here, you know, we serve members who are 3 and older. You have to be a resident of West Virginia. Now, whenever you would go to sit in your initial assessment, you would have to choose home and community-based services over an ICF facility in order to continue to be eligible for the program. And you can go ahead and hit next there for me, please. So here is a general list of services that we have available through our program. All of these are available through our traditional service model. We do also have a personal options service model that gives families a little bit more flexibility when it comes to how they allocate their service dollars. There are some services listed here that are only available to those who are 18 and older. That would include things like, unfortunately, crisis services. That includes, we have a 2-to-1 ratio that can be staffed in the home. And then we also have crisis site services around the state. We currently have 2 at the moment who are accepting folks. Nursing services are also ones that are available only to those 18 years and older. Same thing for your day services and your job development supported employment services. And you can go ahead and change the slide there. The application process for IDD waiver is similar to the other programs. There's an application form. Once that is completed, the process takes approximately 90 days to complete. You will receive a packet from Acentra. It will include, okay. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. That's basically why I had to have Stacy come over. So like I said, the process takes approximately 90 days from start to finish. You'll receive a packet from Acentra Health. It will include what is called an IPN response form, and that's where you have to choose a psychologist to complete your initial assessment. There are timeframes associated with each step of the process that you'll want to be especially conscientious of. Whenever you receive the packet, you have 10 days to select a psychologist to complete your assessment and send that form back to us. And then it is the responsibility of the applicant and or their family to schedule that psychological assessment. The next time piece can take up to 45 days-ish. That is to get your assessment scheduled, to have the assessment completed. And then we do have a contractor who evaluates all of the assessments for medical eligibility. They're a company called PCNA. And that's the same for these initial, and we have annual medical eligibility requirements as well as the financial. In the event that you would apply and either miss a timeline or would be found not eligible for whatever reason, there are no limits on the application. It's not meant to be today. Sorry, there's no limits on the application process. You can apply. There's no limit to that. It can be done annually. It can be done after each instance if you wouldn't be found eligible for the program. Now, one thing that I would like to mention is that with IDD, like I said, West Virginia is in pretty high demand for their waiver services, especially since parents can be paid providers. Now, one thing that I think a lot of folks have, unfortunately, some difficulty understanding is that IDD is not able and cannot meet all needs. Now, we do have a wide variety of services that help folks, but we do run into situations where folks would like the program to do things that just unfortunately are not possible. For one example, we have certain living settings. One is natural family, and that's for children, and it's for folks, who are over 18 who choose to remain in their family home. And we do have service caps on those living settings. So up to 8 hours a day for folks over the age of 18 and 5 hours a day for folks under the age of 18. Now, we do have respite services in addition to that, but the maximum is the 2.5 hours per day average. Now, that's why a lot of folks in those natural family settings happen to choose personal options, because there is a little bit more flexibility to allocate your dollars to receive a little bit more than that daily cap. But that's one of the most common things we run into. Families will say that it's not enough hours in a day. They need additional services. And that is one of our biggest limitations. Some folks, especially if you're over the age of 18, can get around that. We do have 24-hour homes They're provided in both licensed and unlicensed settings. These are provided by traditional agencies who have 24-hour staffing for members, and that is an option that some folks choose. And then for those who perhaps maybe have more personal resources, they have family members who are really active in their life. We have a one-person 24-hour setting available through personal options that will, again, give them a little bit more flexibility with the type of services that they receive. And you can go ahead and do the next slide there. Here is also a fact sheet. Like Luann had mentioned for hers, we are in the middle of the process of changing our application with the federal government. It's currently under review. So we're going to have some services coming up that are not listed here. One of those things that we're trying to do is expand certain medical services. As of right now, the waiver program, we do have nursing available, but a lot of the 24-hour sites utilize what's known as an AMAP. And those are staff without a medical background who go through a training process with a registered nurse. Their annual requirements they have to meet, and they pass medication in the homes. So we have asked for additional nursing services to make sure that we have more professionals in the home, making sure that they have eyes on. We are also expanding some of our crisis services. The current cap for the 2-to-1 is approximately 2 weeks at 24 hours a day. And we have asked for that to be extended to 6 months at 24 hours a day so that we can have 2 staff in the home at all times. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the current culture and situation in IDD waiver right now. We have a little bit of a staffing crisis, and that has led to an unfortunate amount of members having to be placed into state hospitals such as Sharp or Bateman. So that's another reason why I wanted to mention that IDD waiver is unfortunately not a catch-all for anybody who may have intellectual or even mental disabilities. And one of the things that we are hoping is that by expanding those crisis services, we can help those individuals transition back into home and community-based settings. You can go ahead and move next. Okay, and here are some contact information. Stacy Brose is, like she said, the program manager at the Bureau for Medical Services. I am the lead provider educator at Essentra, formerly KEPRO. You're more than welcome to reach out to us. That phone number listed there, the 385-8920, that will put you through to our main line. Anyone, they will, if you mention my name, they'll know who I am, so they can forward you to me. You can also email our waiver inbox there, and that information will also make it to me, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. And I think that's it. Yep. And again, I'm sorry about Juniper. She's not keen today. I'm going to bring Stacy back over so she can talk to you about the CDCSP program.
Thanks so much, Ashley.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. Children with Disabilities Community Service Program. It is not a waiver program, but it is related to the IDD waiver program, sort of. And the reason why is because what it is for children who don't qualify for Medicaid. It's just regular Medicaid. What it provides is a regular Medicaid card for children with certain disabilities. And normally they wouldn't be able to qualify because their parents' income is too high. Well, they can have a psych eval similar to the one that we do on IDD waiver. And if they qualify for the program, then regardless of their parents' income, they can qualify and get a medical card. A lot of people do this while they are on the wait list for the IDD waiver program, because on the IDD waiver program, once you're actually on the program, you also get a traditional medical card, Medicaid card that comes with that, but not until you're on the program. You don't get it while you're on the wait list, but this is a way to do that. If you apply and you are approved for the CDCSP program, you can get a traditional medical card that way. The first step in applying for this program is to apply for Social Security and be denied. We have to have that. That is the very first step. We need that Social Security denial saying, parents make too much money. You can't have it. Once we have that, they can have their psych eval if they are approved, due to their disability and they meet the eligibility criteria. Then they will be able to get a traditional medical card, while they're waiting for their waiver slot, or even if they don't ever even apply for a waiver. So it's a great program for those children who would normally not qualify because their parents make too much income, but they really don't have, but they have, such severe disabilities that their parents still can't pay for their care. So, it's a way for the state, to help out with those situations. So I'm not reading from the slides at all. So I hope that kind of makes sense. And if you have any questions, just let me know. But that's basically an overview of the program for CDCSP. And yeah, there's a couple of other little things who should apply. We have brochures too. If anybody's interested, you can send me an email and I'll send you a brochure. Individuals up to the age of 19 with a severe disability. I can tell you that the qualifications are very similar to IDD waiver, ICF level of care, who would otherwise be denied a medical card due to their parents' income exceeding the allowed limits. Which next slides are okay, yeah. It helps with premiums, deductibles, co-insurance. This is on our brochure and stuff like that, but I think that if it's when you have a traditional Medicaid card, it pays for just mostly anything Medicaid would pay for. So there might be some premiums and deductibles that a parent might be responsible for. And if they have primary insurance, the Medicaid is the payer of last resort. So there's a possibility that there might be some financial responsibility that goes along with that. However, if all you have is Medicaid and that's all that somebody can afford, I believe that Medicaid will pay for almost all of it. If the service is covered under Medicaid, that is. That's where you can find the application materials on that website. PCNA is our eligibility contractor. I think we've mentioned that before for some of the other programs. They do several of our programs. They review our psych evals and approve or deny people for program, based on those psychological evaluations. Here's our contact information again. You will see a lot of times on websites and maybe in various materials, policy manuals, I don't even know. I've tried to get it changed for years. It might say, I am the program manager for CDCSP, the Children with Disabilities Community Service Program. However, I am only the program manager in name. I'll just go ahead and say it. If you have questions about it, please direct them to PCNA. And their contact info is right there, 202 West Drive and Cross Lanes with their phone number. They are the experts. I am not. I don't even have access to the information. They do. So I do help with it, but they are the ones who manage that program, not me. They just have to put a state person's name on it, and that happens to be me because I'm the IDD Waiver Program Manager.
Thank you so much, Stacy. And I know that there's definitely been some interest in that. I saw some questions in the chat about if we could send a copy of the brochure when we send everything else. I think that you may have sent that to me already, but if not, could you please send me that brochure? Because I think a lot of people are happy to hear that there's resources and services that they can be getting while they're on the wait list.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Teresa, I'm going to start your video and get you ready to go.
This waiver program is for West Virginia Medicaid members with a traumatic brain injury who are 3 years old and older and require assistance. The waiver allows a person to remain at or return to their home instead of residing in a care facility. Waiver participants can receive help with daily living activities from a trained staff member, non-medical transportation, and a personal emergency response system that allows members to call for help. Use this site to see if you're eligible for the waiver. Get help with questions and download an application. It's important to start the application process now, as limited slots are available. Care at home. It could be the most important choice you make.
Okay. Teresa, you're gonna take the lead today. So I'll go ahead and get things started for you.
Thank you. So, like the ADW program, the TBI waiver is a long-term care alternative that allows individuals that choose to stay at home or want to return home to do so with the support of the program services. You do have to both be financially and medically eligible to participate in the program, and the financial eligibility is the same as the other the ADW and TBI waiver. It's that 300% above the federal poverty level, $2,000 asset limit for an individual. And then the medical eligibility criteria, we use the same pass the pre-admission screening that is used to determine a nursing home level of care. So they would have to have 5 deficits, but we are able to pull from 17 categories on the pass. There's a few that are more specific to a TBI, so we are able to have a few more. I think ADW is 15 areas and ours is 17. Change the slide, please. The eligibility criteria is, that they must be 3 years of age or older, a permanent resident of West Virginia. And here's the biggie. It's the definition of a traumatic brain injury. And we follow the current West Virginia State Code, and that's defined as a non-degenerative, non-congenital insult to the brain caused by an external physical force, resulting in total or partial functional disability and or psychosocial impairment, or an injury caused by anoxia due to near drowning. So, it's pretty much an accident. It's car accidents, ATV accidents, motorcycle accidents. Um, it is not a medical occurrence. Like, we'll get a lot of calls for people that have had a stroke, or maybe they had anoxia because of a heart attack. Those are not external physical forces to the brain. The anoxia, um, you know unfortunately, I've been trying and I'm going to keep trying, but anoxia, like to, smoke inhalation or carbon monoxide poisoning, are not currently eligible. I hope that we can get that changed someday. But right now it is only the anoxia due to near drowning. As I mentioned, the medical eligibility, it's those 5 deficits, from the pass that's used to determine a nursing home level of care. Something that is a little different, um, than the ADW program. We have an additional tool that we have to use to determine. So it's not solely based on the pass. For individuals that are 18 years and older, they have to score a level 7 or higher on a tool called the Ranchos Los Amigos scale of cognitive functioning. And if they are the ages 3 to 17, there's another Ranchos tool that is used for that age group, and they have to score a level 2 or a higher on the consciousness scale. We can take an application from basically from anywhere. The person can be in a nursing home, they can be in a hospital, they can live in the community, they can take it from their doctor's office or from their neurologist. Um, and they do have to meet the Medicaid waiver financial eligibility criteria for the program. And again, that is determined by the local DHHR office, and they must choose to participate in the TBI waiver program. So if if they get STARS form, the M&ER, it's BMS website. You can get it from Acentra/Kepro, and they send out a packet, or once that application is filled out by the doctor, the member fills out part of it. There's different people who can sign off on that application. It's a medical doctor, a DO, a PA, or an RN. I'm sorry, my mind just went blank. It'll come to me in a minute. But once they fill that application out, then they submit it to Acentra, Kepro, and they will then, if it's a correct, everything's filled out correctly, and they meet that TBI criteria of the definition, then they will send out a packet to the applicant. Acentra does, with instructions and the forms to get started with the financial eligibility, going to their local DHHR. And once they're determined financially eligible, then Acentra will do the medical eligibility process. They do have to be 3 years of age to apply. And then last, we have to have an available funded slot. The TBI waiver is the smallest of the waivers. We currently have 96 slots. We are in the process right now. We have an addendum to our current application with CMS right now, and we are adding some additional slots. And right now we do have a managed enrollment list. There's I believe there's 5 people on it now. The only way the slots become available are like with the other programs, either maybe there are no, unlike the other ones, a lot of times there are people with TBI that they improve. And so they may not, meet medical criteria in a year or two. So, they would come off the program. So a slot would become available that way. They might choose just to not, to have the services anymore. They might move out of state. Or they would pass away, and that's how the slots become available, and those roll over each year, and they open up at the start of a new state fiscal year, which begins on January 1. So our wait list is typically not very long, and our administration is pretty good. If things are starting to look tight, we can, go to them and try to request additional slots. But, when they go onto that managed enrollment list, if they already have a Medicaid card, they might be eligible to apply for the personal care services program if they have an appropriate Medicaid coverage type. And I'm going to be talking about that program after this one. So that would be one way to get some assistance. They might even be eligible for the age disabled waiver program, and they could get on it. You can apply for any of the other waiver programs while you're on a waiver, but when the slots become available, you can only choose one. You can only be on one waiver at a time. And with that being said, you can't, you can only be on one waiver at a time. Change the slide, please. The services that are available for the TBI waiver, everyone has to receive their case management services, the personal attendant services, and that's the workers that come out into the home and help the individuals with those activities of daily living. We've already, discussed them, with some of the other programs, the bathing, dressing, grooming, transitioning, walking, incontinence, medication prompting. The personal attendants, cannot perform any type, there's a list of things in policy that they cannot do. They can't do any type of, skilled nursing things. They cannot administer medication. They can't check glucose levels or administer insulin. Um, they can basically, you have those pill cases and a glass of water carried over to the person and say, I think it's about time for your afternoon medications. Here you go. And take it. But they cannot, they can't even make a decision for a heating pad or an aspirin. They can bring it over if the member asks them for it. We also have the non-medical transportation services, and basically, we do have the community participation. They can take the person to the grocery store, to the drugstore, to the bank, to the hairdresser, or maybe just to go out to lunch that day. Anything that is uh, you know that the member needs transportation to, as long as it's not a Medicaid paid, medical appointment. We don't use the waiver billing for that. That is additional service, that's offered just through Medicaid in general. We also have the PERS units, the fallen and I can't get up buttons, that was newly added this year, along with the environmental accessibility adaptation for home and vehicle. That was added this year. And then I did want to mention that we have something called Take Me Home Transition Services. A person has to be eligible for the TBI waiver or the age disabled waiver. This service is contained within our waivers, and if somebody has been in a nursing home or a hospital for a total of 90 days and are looking to transition back into their own home and community, this program can assist those individuals in doing that. I'm going to change the slide. So to begin the process, as I mentioned before, that medical necessity evaluation request form, you can get that from the utilization management contractor, and that's, Kepro or Acentra. Whoa, you jumped ahead. And or off of the BMS website. And then I think okay.
Sorry about that.
So that's okay. You got me off. So, there's the information about applying. And if you want to go to the next slide, there's the contact. Oh, that's the downloadable fact sheet that the other programs have had. Again, this one does not reflect the PERS or the EAA. And in fact, we have been inquiring, with the person that takes care of our websites today. I talked to her this morning about, hey, what do we need to do to get these things updated? So hopefully we'll get that taken care of pretty soon. But yeah, it's just as well because we do have some things in the addendum to CMS, some other services that we're looking to add to. So maybe we'll just be able to do it all at once. But they're great fact sheets, and there's a lot of information on there. Next slide. Again, I'm Teresa McDonough, and I have the TBI waiver program through with BMS, and that's my contact information. And my counterpart at Acentra, aka Kepro, is Barbara Recknagel, and there is her contact information. Should anybody have any questions or assistance, you can get hold of either one of us, and we would be happy to help you. Okay. Next, I'm going to talk about the personal care services program. It is not a waiver. It is a state plan program through Medicaid. Change the slide, please. So the program, It does assist individuals to perform those activities of daily living and instrumental activities of daily living in the home and place of employment or their community. They have to they have to have an eligible Medicaid card. Now, this was all news to me a few years back. Not all Medicaid cards are created equal. So, you know, like the personal care services program, if you have a Medicaid card through a MCO, some of the MCOs do some personal care programs, but it's not this personal care program. But if you are wanting to apply for this, you would have to change from the MCO to see if you would be eligible to change for a traditional Medicaid card. And then you would have to you have to have three deficits in those ADLs. They do use the PASS, Centra does when determining the medical eligibility for the program, but you only have to have 3 deficits for this program. When you get it also has a one-page application, the medical necessity evaluation request form. When you get that form from off of the website from me or from Centra or Kepro, the first thing that Kepro will do is look at the type of Medicaid eligibility that you have to see if it is one of the ones eligible for PC services. If it is not, then they'll let the applicant know. If it is, then they'll move forward with scheduling the medical assessment. And change the slide, please. And I've already covered this, the 3 deficits of ADLs. So as I mentioned, Kepro, an RN from Kepro or a Centra, they will do the eligibility determination, and then they're going to determine what level of services that you're eligible for. And there's 2 levels on the program. A level 1 is 1 to 60 hours per month, and a level 2 is 61 to 210 hours per month. And once and during that assessment, you choose your provider. Unlike the waiver programs, the personal care services program does not have a self-direction option. I didn't mention that on TBI, but it also has a self-direction option, but the PC program currently does not. And once you have selected your provider agency, then an RN from that agency will come out and do, an assessment to develop a plan of care. And the agency then would hire and train a direct care worker to come out and assist with the services that are listed on the plan of care. And change the slide, please. One of the things that I will mention about the personal care program, if someone is on one of the 3 waivers, now this does not apply to the CSED. If they are on IDD, age disabled, or the TBI waiver, and they are meeting the maximum criteria level that's set for that waiver, and they need services above and beyond what their waiver is providing them as far as their daily worker, they can apply for dual services along with the personal care services program. You can't have 2 waivers, but you can have a waiver and a PC program. Now, if they're not meeting the maximum levels that's set forth in each of the policies, then, and they, for whatever reason, they went ahead and applied for personal care, then they're going to have to choose between the waiver program or the personal care program. The personal care program also, the workers are allowed, if they have, as their receiving their assistance in the ADLs. They have to be, that's their primary function. And then, then they are able to assist things, with light housekeeping, laundry. They can go to the grocery store and, the drugstore, things like that for the member, or take the member with them. This program does not have transportation in it. However, the worker can bill their time. Like if the member wants to stay at home and then they're going to go to the grocery store, or the laundromat, if they don't have washer and dryer in their home, they can bill for their time, but it doesn't have the transportation mode. So here is the information for Acentra Kipro, and getting that M&ER form to get things started, taking it to your doctor and getting it filled out, and they'll fax it into Kipro. You'll change your slide, please. And another handy dandy flyer, downloadable flyer from off of the personal care website. And this one is correct. So there's a lot of good information on there. And you can, get that from the personal care website. I'll go in and put that website. Is that on the slide, Melina? The PC, I don't remember. But the waiver ones are all like, it pulls it up all together, and then you click on which waiver you want. But the personal care services program is, it's not on that tab. It does. The reason we're talking about it is, these programs fall under in our unit. It's the home and community-based services unit. And so, that's why I'm getting it now. And I'll put it in.
All of these are so easy to find. I think I found it just by Googling like West Virginia personal care.
Yep.
But thanks for putting that in the chat. Somebody else had a question. Are there age requirements for the personal care program?
There is not an age requirement like the other ones, but it's very difficult and unlikely that someone under the age of 3 is going to get onto it. And then even at the age of 3, they probably would be, very minimal hours. The program is not respite. And during the assessments, they're going to be looking at what would be considered age appropriate. So like a 3-year-old is not going to get incontinence. You're looking for 3 deficits, because most 3-year-olds are not incontinent. So they're going to be looking at what is appropriate age developmentally, and they're going to be looking at what is considered a natural parental responsibilities. Bathing. I'm sorry, but your parents are typically bathing 3, 4-year-olds. Usually, where the big cutoff we see the most is like about 5. It really starts, but we do have 3-year-olds on the program.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry, I don't have a cohort with me today. Mine isn't. Barb wasn't with me today. Although, you know what, Susan Silverman with the Bureau of Senior Services. If you change the slide, she, we contract BMS as the overseeing agency, but or is the agency responsible for the program. But we do contract with. Kipro, Acentra does the initial and annual eligibility for determinations for the program. And then the day-to-day operations of our program, we contract with the Bureau of Senior Services, and Susan Silverman is the Director of Medicaid Operations. As you saw, she was, with that's the same agency in person that does the age disabled waiver. So there's the contact information for the individuals involved with this program. And I haven't been watching the chat because I've been trying to talk. So
Yeah. That's why I've been trying to keep an eye on it for you, since you don't have your sidekick here with you today. Let's see. Okay, so that brings us to questions, and I do see a couple here that just recently came in. Is there an age requirement for the CDCSP program? Stacy,
I'm sorry, what was the question?
is there age eligibility for that one?
The age eligibility, oh my gosh, this is what I'm talking about. I rarely do anything with this program. I don't think there is. If there is, it's 3, but I don't think there is though. I'll get back to you on that and let you know for sure. But I think they might be able to be on it before the age of 3. I'll try and look for it right now while we're still talking or whatever, just to make sure. I don't, like I said, I don't deal with this program a lot. I just my name is just on it. So, but I'll try and find that answer for you right now while we're talking.
Thank you. Okay, I think a lot of these questions in the chat have been answered along the way. So we have a couple minutes now, not to put anyone on the spot, and it's okay for all of our presenters to say, I don't know, I'll have to get back to you on that, because I always, no matter how much of an expert you are on something, there's always that one question that throws you off or catches you on the spot. But if anyone would like to unmute and ask a question, we can go ahead and open that up for some discussion for a few minutes.
Hey, Melina.
Yes.
I saw a couple of questions in the chat related to IDD, and I think that this is going to be particularly meaningful for a lot of folks. It was related to autism. Our current policy manual lists autism as one of those special conditions that could qualify you for the program, as long as you have, the severity level, as well as the deficits in at least 3 of the 6 life areas. One of the changes that we had put in our application is to clarify that to specify level 3 autism. That is not a change. I just want to be very clear to folks. The eligibility criteria has always been for an autism diagnosis that classifies as severe. We're just adding the clarification in to say level 3. And that was a big concern for a lot of folks when we had our public comment for the application was, oh my gosh, there's all these changes. But I just want to let everybody know that it is not a change. That level has always been the criteria.
Right, we're just clarifying it in our
Yes.
policy manual. So
Yes.
that's it.
Is
Thank
there
you.
currently a waiver program for children that do have autism that are like level 2 with severe behaviors, but don't meet that level 3 guideline? Could they do CSED, or are we kind of just hands are tied at this point with that?
I'll let Jen reply in response to CSED, but as far as a specific autism waiver, the state of West Virginia does not have that at this time.
Right. So typically we do have a lot of children on the program with an autism diagnosis, and we do have some kids that are at level 2. So as of right now, it is CSED.
Okay, thank you.
Another question that I'm seeing is, would shaken baby syndrome potentially qualify for the TBI waiver?
Yeah, I just answered that. Yes, that would be an eligible diagnosis, but of course they would have to meet the other, the other criteria. We had a little bit of a problem, I think, with one doctor on that ICD-10. About how they listed the shaken baby syndrome. I can't remember exactly what it was. That's where I need Barb here. But, I guess they have a couple choices, as far as the shaken baby syndrome. So they just would need to make sure that the right one, and we would help them with that.
Okay, so that's good to know that if you feel like that's something that you've heard should qualify, then maybe ask that follow-up question, because maybe somebody did code something wrong in the application form or the eligibility So that's a good tip. And I saw somewhere else, I'm not seeing it right now, so it may have been answered, but would anoxia due to strangulation be something that would potentially qualify?
Not at this time. That's another one of those anoxia. That's the three things. I want to get smoke inhalation, carbon monoxide poisoning, and near strangulation would be the three things that I'd like to see change. And the best way to get that done is, we need to get state code changed. That would help me being able to get it changed on for our program. Um,
Any other questions? Feel free to unmute and ask your question if it hasn't been answered in the chat or if there's something else that has come up.
I have a question, and it may be something that I just need better clarification on. I'm a home finder for the adult family care program in West Virginia, and it's kind of an enigma that I just have really struggled to wrap my head around. Um, our clients who are in adult family care are not eligible for waiver because I think the way that it's written in policy is that waiver is a greater need or a greater higher level of service than adult family care provides. At the same time, those clients have been determined to be in need of 24-hour supervision in a home where they can't live on their own or independently, while waiver services seems to support independent living. And I guess that's where I've kind of gotten my hairs crossed a little bit. I don't quite understand how, a person could need 24-hour care and not be able to live independently and yet be receiving a lower level of care, in quotes, than another program which allowed them to live in their own home independently. I don't know if I'm describing that in a way that makes sense, but there's a lot of kind of like rubbing up against the edges of each other between AFC and waiver services. And it's something that I've wondered why some of our clients couldn't be eligible for both, given that they're living in a home that's supposed to be essentially like their home. But I don't know if that makes any sense or not. It's just something I've wondered about.
Well, I can tell you that for the TBI waiver and the age disabled waiver and the personal care services programs, those are not intended to provide support to an individual for 24/7, even if they're dually eligible for like one of those waivers and the PC program. The only program that offers 24/7 care is the IDD waiver, and not it's not for individuals that are living in they don't offer 24-hour care for individuals living in a family setting. The only ones that get 24-hour care would be like the ones in the ISS homes or the group homes. So, but I think what you're asking is how can they meet the criteria of your program and of the need of 24-hour care and then not any of ours?
Yeah, well, what it is the waiver programs are described in our policy as for people that have a greater need than our clients, and yet our clients can't live independently in their own homes. So in my mind, if you can't live independently in your own home, that kind of says that you have a greater need than someone that perhaps can with assistance, if that makes any sense. Like once your need is so great that you have to leave your own home and live in another person's home to provide care for you, I would think that that would speak to the fact that your need was greater. And it's kind
Who
of
funds your program? Who pays the people of the homes that they're living in? Is it a Medicaid funded
um,
program?
No, it's DHHR funded as far as I know. The state makes up the difference between it's a really the clients themselves, their social security goes towards the payment of the provider, and then the state makes up the difference up to the amount. And
And
so the
tell me the
provide
name of your program or the program you're talking about again.
it's adult family care. It's
Steve Brady, are you still on this call? Is that your program or was or?
No, that's not my program. That's with the Bureau of Social uh, Services. It's less
Okay.
restrictive than what your waiver programs are.
I did want to speak though to IDD waiver. Just being either a participant or involved with the adult family care program does not inhibit you from applying to IDD waiver. You can certainly apply, you just have to meet the medical and financial eligibility. And then so I mean, if that were the case, if you felt like they couldn't apply, I just wanted to let you know that that barrier is not there. They would though just have to meet the medical and financial eligibility requirements.
So my understanding is that the barriers aren't on your guys' end, but in our policy, it says that if a person is receiving IDD waiver services, they do not qualify for AFC.
And
So
that's
we can,
correct. And that'll be the case. You can't get it through two different sources. Now, if they were on IDD waiver or another waiver, they would be eligible for perhaps personal care if they were living in their own family home and still had needs greater than what could be provided. They could certainly apply for that.
So they would have to choose if they applied while in his setting, then they were eligible for IDD. Then they'd have to choose either with the IDD services, and they may have to move from the home they're at. So.
And now
I
I don't
mean,
know.
Love you.
I was gonna say, I don't know as much about their home setting, but if it was perhaps, a home that was maybe owned by a family member or the person themselves, as far as IDD waiver is concerned, you would definitely be able to remain living in that home as long as there were no other circumstances affiliated with your program that maybe I'm not aware of. But if it was member owned, then, they could receive IDD waiver services in their home as long as they weren't on another program.
If I may speak up on that issue, my name is Regis Grote, and I am with the Specialized Family Care Program. If a person in adult family care would become eligible for IDD waiver, what could happen in that situation if the adult family care provider would like to be reimbursed for her services is for her to become a specialized family care provider. She could remain duly certified as an adult family care provider plus a specialized family care provider, and that individual could receive IDD waiver services in an approved site. And all of those services could happen. And he could also remain with the family who has provided care for him all those years. Thank you.
Thank you, Regis.
yeah, I appreciate that information. If you don't mind, so this is something I've been trying to clarify, is that what you're saying is the person can receive IDD waiver in specialized family care, and would they be able to be compensated as a waiver worker for the hours that the person is approved for waiver in addition to the compensation from
No,
being
they would either have to accept the adult family care rate of reimbursement, or they would have to become a specialized family care provider and receive the reimbursement through IDD waiver and forsake the adult family care waiver rate. But I have to say, our rate with IDD waiver and specialized family care, it's a little bit more.
Right. And the
Yeah.
feds are paying for the majority of that, by the way. And that's a big difference when it comes to state and federally funded programs. IDD waiver is, in most of the waiver programs, are largely funded by the feds. Other programs, Steve, if you want to talk about them, I know you know all about them or whatever, are, state funded, and those come out of state dollars, and the state doesn't have a lot of money, honestly. So yeah, we try to get people into programs, when the feds can pay for them or whatever. Specialized family care. We do allow specialized family care providers in homes that are certified in that to bill for waiver, and that
they
is
can bill for
paid for
PCE.
largely through the feds.
And
What is it?
one other thing, the specialized family care home would be able to charge room and board rates
Right.
for the individual living in the home, which right now is $18.75, but starting January 1st, the room and board rate goes up to $21.50 a day. And those rates are reviewed every 2 years by the Medley management team.
For that family support program, honestly, I've never even heard of it. If you want to send me some information on it, I'd love to read about it. So, I can't remember your name. I'm sorry.
Clint.
What was it?
Clint.
Clint.
Oh, okay. Who's asking for information, and can you give me an
It's
email
Stacy
address?
Bruce from the Bureau for Medical
Stacy
Services.
Bryce, I'm the IDD waiver program manager.
I'm putting her.
Yeah, she'll put it
I'm
in
putting
the
her
chat.
email in chat.
There you go.
So I guess in the interest of full disclosure as to why I've asked this question, our adult family care providers are only given about $1,030 a month per client, and they house these people in their homes. They're with them basically 24/7, and they provide out of that money for all of the client's needs, their food, their medical transportation, their everything. Well, I shouldn't say everything. The client gets about a $220 allowance a month. And the program is essentially dying. It's dwindling slowly in numbers. And I have been trying to find ways that our providers could be better compensated for the services that they're providing, because it seems very low. When you add all these things up, they may only get a couple $100 a month left over at the end of all the client's expenses that they keep. And waiver workers are compensated much better, it seems to me, for the services that they provide. And in some ways, we're sort of in competition for the same individuals to provide. And so I guess I've been asking and trying to find ways that are, it sounds like through specialized family care, I was told that they couldn't bill for waiver hours in our program, even if they did qualify, but it sounds like through that program they can. Anyway, that's just, I guess I wanted to explain why I'm asking these questions, so you know where I'm coming from.
Clint, this is Regis again, and I just sent you an email so that we could talk to each other after this training one day. I have things to do this afternoon, though, so I won't be in, but I would love to talk to you.
Sure. Thank you, sir.
Thanks for that connection, Regis. And for those of you that aren't familiar with the specialized family care program, it's an amazing program, and it's offered through the CED here. So you can just go to our website, and I dropped that program specific address in the chat as well. So, okay, one last, okay, Stacy's addressing questions in the chat. So thanks for that. So we did get started a couple minutes late, but I do want to make sure that we end on time, because I value all of your time. And I think this has been great. A couple things that I do want to mention that were just key takeaways that I gained from today is, first of all, this information was so needed. We had over 200 people, 250 stay on a webinar for 2 hours today on a Friday morning, and we were not offering CEUs. I mean, that right there is really a big deal, because, and I think it shows that this information is so important. We had almost 400 people register, and many of them said, I'm registering because I need to get the information. I'm not available that day. Please send it out. So we are going to post the archive to the CED's website for those that missed it, and I'll send that out as well. But a couple key takeaways besides that this information was so great. Thank you very much. CDC SP. That's a program that I think a lot of people aren't familiar with, and you can be getting services while you're on a wait list. So I think people needed to know that, and they need to share the word, because a lot of people think they hear, oh, there's a long wait list. I can't get anything right now. I'm just gonna hold off. Second is, if you think you do qualify for one of these programs and there is a wait list, get on it, because eventually there will be a spot. It may take months, it may take years, but the services are there and they're so helpful and valuable. It's worth it. I mean, it takes some time to fill out the applications, but you're never going to get them if you don't get on the wait list. So get on the wait list. You can be on one waiver and apply for another. That's a question I get all the time. I'm not sure if I should be on the IDD waiver or the aged and disabled. I'm not sure. I think there's, spots open here. Maybe I should just take them, but I think the services might, long-term be better for this one. So apply. If another spot opens up, I've learned today that you can switch. KeyPro is now Essentra, so we all need to change our vocabulary and our lingo. And I think that there's just a lot of people that need this information. So thank you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen real quick to wrap up. Okay, here we go. Family to Family program and the CED are here. If you have questions about things and you're not sure where to go, give us a call. We have our parent network specialists who can connect you to resources. We have lots of great programs and services. Follow us. We are always sharing information and resources. And finally, we would love to have your feedback on the presentation today. And I also added a question in there about some future topics of information that you would be interested in having a presentation about. I would love to get that input. And also, if you fill out that evaluation, I mentioned we weren't providing CEUs, but I did add a certificate of attendance at the end of the evaluation that you can download and submit for your individual education training. So you could submit that on your own for that independent learning credits. So thank you guys all so much. I will also drop this link in the chat and be sending it out to you right after. But you can also just take your phone and scan that QR code. I promise it'll take less than a minute. So thank you guys all so much for your time today. I really appreciate the great conversation, and I'm so grateful to all of the presenters for taking the time in this busy end of year season to share with us today. So thank you.
Thanks, Melina. I just wanted to add really quickly, I put it in the chat, but just in case nobody saw it, I do want to mention that there is no minimum age requirement for the CDCSP application. So just wanted to throw that in real quick.
Great. Thank
And
you.
then one other question, Melina, that I saw pop up. People were asking if there was a way to save the chat or if that information could be provided somewhere.
I can add that. I can save it when I present or when I close the presentation. So I can save that chat and add that as a part of the handouts. Also, I wanted to mention that there was a much more detailed and thorough presentation about all of these processes that was shared with me, and it had like all of the logistics of how to apply and what those names of the forms are, and how long it takes for this and who do you submit that to. And so I'm also going to send that because I think it's a great reference tool for all of us that are like, okay, I know I apply and I know that I'm eligible. How do I get started and what can I expect? And especially for us professionals to be able to know those nuts and bolts pieces and be able to tell people, okay, this is what you need to do and this is how. I'm going to share that presentation as well because it's a great reference. So you can save that somewhere in your files to be able to look back on as well. Yes, I will mail a link to the recording. It will take me a few days because I have to download it, make sure that the captions are accessible and get all of that information up. And I can send the link to the presentation probably, I want to say next week, but it may be, there's only 3 days in my work week next week before the holidays. So definitely right after, if not. So thank you guys. Enjoy the rest of your Friday and have a great weekend.
Melina, thanks for having all of us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
You all have a
you.
wonderful
Thank you.
evening and enjoy your holiday.
Thank you. You too.